What is going on, everybody? We are back with another episode of the Survivor 50 Files. We today are going to deep dive. Nobody's diving more than Ozzy in Survivor history. We're gonna deep dive into what it's like to play with Ozzy, what it's like to watch Ozzy, and we have here a Survivor legend. You know him, 2 tours on Survivor, both Micronesia and Karamoan. You see Dabu Doodles on Instagram. That's this guy as well. It's our good friend Erik Reichenbach. Erik, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, doing well. And as you said, yeah, I'm drawing on Instagram. Dabu Doodles is the name. And a lot of people get confused because they're like, wow, this guy really likes Survivor. Who's this Dabu Doodles guy? And they don't realize, because I don't really post my face on there, that's that guy. That's the guy who gave away immunity.
He's here. We're with him. We're with him right now. Erik, how are you? How are things going? 2025.
Things are going well. I'm watching from the sidelines. I'm more on the sidelines just because I have a young son. A lot of people say stuff like, are you going to play again? Would you ever play again? And I would, not anytime soon, but also they're not calling me. So I don't think I'm not in the queue. I'm not in like the Rolodex for any of that. And that's okay right now for me, but I'm good.
Once you heard about season 50, was there any part of you that was like, I could be on season 50? Season 50 might be happening. Did you have that? Does that still flicker?
I thought I'd get a call. I didn't get anything, but I thought, I'm like, you might get a call. I don't think I would be on it. The competition's too high. There's too many good players.
Now, I'll bring up the cast while we're chatting about it before we get to Ozzy. Tell me, just boilerplate, Erik Reichenbach. What is this group to you? Is this a group that you're excited about? Would you make some changes? How do you feel?
I had some hot takes. I posted on Blue Sky actually.
Rip them. Tell us.
It's Jeff's favorites. A lot of this is Jeff. It's Jeff's stamp. Personally, I don't think anybody should play 5 times. I'm a big believer in you should not play any more than 5 times. And that's less about the individual playing 5 times than the breadth of how many people you have to choose from with so many different strategies, so many different personalities. Give someone a second chance. Give someone maybe a third chance who did something really amazing their second time around. I'm a big fan of, second chances for people because you play so much better. I think Rick Devens stands out to me as somebody who's essentially, this is going to be his second time playing officially.
This is second time, and then yes, in Edge of Extinction, he does get voted out 4th and then returns. So really, like one could call it a third time. He got like a second chance at life,
So exactly. So Rick Devens comes to mind as he had a first time playing and a second time playing when he came back. So this is technically a third time. He played so like a level of so much insanity better when he came back. And it's that experience and going through that, like, okay, you got voted out. You're not destroyed as a human being. Like you're here again. Like I feel like that's a perfect example of like a second time player and a third time player. You're going to get some really amazing gameplay. And you kind of see that on seasons where you do have, a 2-time player or a 3rd-time player.
And then we have on our top row here, we have a couple round 4s, and then we have 2 round 5s, 2 of which you played with. You've been with both of these round 5s, you spent some time with you. Tell me first about Suri. Like, what's the Suri 5-time look like for you?
So Suri's amazing. This is a far and away. Suri is wonderful. She's amazing. Everything she touches is great. I have nothing against Suri personally playing a 5th time. I'm against 5th-time players as like a casting decision. Suri just needs her own show. Like, forget it. Just have a Suri show. That's what you need at this point. She's an awesome person. The reason Suri is great is she's genuinely an awesome person. Like, you take away the gameplay, which is like next level gameplay, a core part of why the Black Widow Alliance worked, and a core part of why almost any strategy works on a season she's on. She's a good person. Like, outside of that, like, and that's difficult to navigate, I think, for a lot of people. Russell Hantz is like the far end of the spectrum of like strategy and like not a decent person, not a good person in my opinion. But Suri's the opposite end. Like, she's lawful good, but I guess she's a little bit of lawful evil too at the same time.
We should be using that chart more for all of these people. That's a
Yeah.
fun assignment that maybe I'll do it at another point. Just because, yeah, you have people that kind of spin that. I don't know if, like, I think, Rick Devens, is Rick Devens chaotic good, or is Rick Devens chaotic evil? I'm not sure.
Well, this is kind of the litmus test, because I think he was just kind of good, like good
Mhm.
neutral, and then he got voted out, and then he became, I think, chaotic good
Yeah, I mean,
on that
once
season.
you feel that, like, you're kind of playing with house money at a certain point. You're back in, you kind of, and I
Yeah,
do think that's a great healthy perspective to have. And I wonder for the folks that are playing here, you have Ozzy, who's done everything. Ozzy's been voted out
right.
during the jury, Ozzy's made it to the end, whatever. But the people who are playing this who haven't lost, I think is even
Yeah,
if you haven't won, like even if you just made it to the end, which I think I saw a statistic and I'm not going to get it right here, maybe 12 or 13 of them have made it to the final tribal council. That I
yeah,
think losing is a skill, and I think it benefits you to go and lose and then come back and play.
yeah,
So your folks like Angelina, Mike White, I'm looking at, D and Charlie and Joe and Kyle, I guess both of them. Like I think
yeah,
feeling that defeat is definitely helpful. And then like I said, Aussies and Suri have been in every stage of this situation. They haven't
right,
won, but they've done every other thing. So
right.
let me ask you first about Ozzy. Tell me, Erik, your origin story with Survivor. How are you watching Survivor for the first time, and what is it like to watch? People that obviously you're unbeknownst to you that you'll play with, but take me through watching and then watching Ozzy
You mean like when I was a fan of the show versus like,
when you're a fan,
yeah.
pre-playing.
So some of this I'm breaking down. I'm making a memoir. This is like we're in the edit stage, but I'm making a memoir about my time before, during, and after Survivor. Um,
So neat.
yeah,
How long have you been working on that?
like I think about 3 years.
Wow.
It's We're in the editing phase. I have a publisher. Their name's Fifth Avenue Press. It's before, during, and after Survivor. Like what led me to Survivor, playing the first time, playing the second time, and then the aftermath. It's part therapy and it's part like historical about Survivor, like pop culture historical. Um, I was drawn to Survivor as like a competitor, like I was a cross country runner. Um, Ozzy stuck out as that's the competitor, that's the guy, that's the model for me to play the game. Um, Playing Survivor and going through the first time and then also the second time, Survivor is like a pseudo competition. Like it's actually not like truly a competition, like a competitive show. It's more of a social political show. And as a kid, I didn't get that. There's all this focus on the challenges, and you start to see as you watch Survivor, and if you played Survivor, you start to realize the challenges are kind of like a distraction from the real game that's going on, which is people. It's just all these people. Um, Ozzy, I looked up to him as like a survivalist. Like he's got that down. Like he was writing a book on coconuts in Micronesia when I was there, and it sounded awesome. I'm still waiting for that book, honestly.
Look at the link for the podcast for the coconut book. It's down there somewhere, I'm sure, in the YouTube
Okay,
description.
and he kills in the challenges. He was like natural in the challenges. As time went on, I realized the challenges were not where it was at. That's part of it, but your Black Widow Brigade is annihilating people, and then later I started to see some people went through the game and they didn't win a single challenge, but they won the entire thing. Um, Ozzy, every time he returns, he makes a statement about, I want to be more social. I want to be more strategic. And he doesn't do it. like it's almost like a projection of like, I feel unsure about that, so I need to work on that, but it never comes to pass.
Well, the funny memory that I have of Ozzy during Game Changers is he is the second member of the jury. He gets his torch, and I believe he says to he addresses the group and says like, "Good luck catching any fish." Which to me, if like
Yeah,
after 4 times, it does feel like we're still missing the mark of what Survivor is.
yeah,
Like there are
yeah,
shows where that's important, and Survivor, it is important to catch fish on Survivor, undoubtedly so. But if the walking away line while you're processing is good luck catching fish, I don't think that what you're exactly saying is it's the social political part of it. It's not the fish catching survival competition that I think
yeah.
Ozzy every time wants it to be. And it is never, it's never regressed to that. In fact, we're regressing, or we're progressing rather farther away from Like,
Yeah.
it was kind of close to that in Cook Islands, right? The earlier seasons, you're getting a little of that. Now
Right.
it's, we're Advantage City on Survivor New Era. We're, and I'm very curious as to how Ozzy navigates this new thing. The
Yeah.
picking of you're picking the dice, and then you're going to the island, and you have to play the game with,
Yeah.
I don't know how
Yeah.
Ozzy's going to do with that.
Yeah. I was thinking about this. I just walked my dogs and I was thinking about like how could Ozzy win? Like how would he win in this season? There's enough connections to people he's played with, like Coach, Sari, potentially even like Kobe or some of these old schoolers that maybe he didn't play with, but he's in those circles that, maybe he's just a number. And then at the very end, he wins enough challenges to win to the end. If
Yeah,
I was
and you know what?
Ozzy, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I want to hear the thought.
I just he's not going to change. I feel like he's not going to change. If he goes in there and he decides I'm not going to win challenges intentionally to like lower my threat level, I would be like, "Oh, you are adapting to what is happening." But I just don't see it, man.
Yeah, it's interesting is he is one of the only, and I'll put the graphic up just so we can see it. He's
Yeah.
one of these the only older era Survivor contestants who is presently in the world. Like, Ozzy's going to events. Ozzy's meeting the new era people. Ozzy's
Yeah.
going to the finales in LA. He goes to I know he went to the Ron Clark Academy in Atlanta. So he's at least even had FaceTime with this newer crowd, whereas Colby most certainly has not. Stephanie,
Right.
Jenna, most certainly hasn't. Coach, I know, has recently kind of dipped his toe back in. Aubrey, no, So I'm interested in that he does have those connections. I do wonder, though, when you have somebody who goes on Survivor in 2006 and then 2007 with you, and then 2011 with South Pacific, 2016 with Game Changers, and there is a lack of adapting majorly in those times. Like, what
Yeah.
is the cause to adapt now? Like, what is did he get the strategic bug to now change that play style? I'm not sure.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm convinced it's honestly more of an ego thing. It's more of a like, this is the thing I'm known for. And he's like you said, he's been here so long and he's been through so many eras. He's known as being a challenge beast. And he gets some, I think, some emotional return on that. And I think honestly, that's more like helpful to him to have than to say, hey, I'm going to switch up my strategy. And it's nothing personal against him. I think that's just how he's wired.
Yeah, it's interesting, and he's not the only challenge beast that's going to be here. A lot of the
Right.
times that he plays, granted, it's a survival show, it's Survivor, so there are people who are good at challenges. But Ozzy is like, when you ask a Survivor fan off the street who maybe hasn't watched in 10, 15 years, they remember Ozzy for being good at the
Yeah.
challenges. So
Yeah.
I am unsure of like, he's going to be with Joe from season 48, who you just watched win 4 immunities. He's going to be with Colby, who, granted, nobody really knows the return on investment we're going to get from Colby this time. But
Right.
Colby in his heyday, great at the challenges. Chrissy Hoffbeck wins 4 immunity challenges. Dee wins a bunch of challenges. So he's not the only guy with this particular set of skills. He's not
Right.
Liam Neeson.
Right.
And there's 10 Liam Neesons. Let me ask you, when you hear about season 50 for the first time, whenever this is, a couple months ago, and it's just like the rumors start going, the Twitter is twittering, the blue sky is skying, who do you think's on it? If you had to just guess 8 months ago of who's on it, is that close to what we got for this season?
It is. I do think that they missed an opportunity by like there's this huge gap of seasons. I don't know exactly what number. There's that huge gap of seasons of like nobody. Like they didn't pick anybody.
The 20s are noticeably missing.
Yeah.
I think even from we have Coach who's 18 and then Aubrey's 32. So we have those middle seasons, which granted Ozzy plays in 2 of them, but there's no new faces from that time. And it does seem like a weird split.
Yeah.
But let me ask you about Ozzy. When you are on fans versus favorites, are you sequestered with the favorites? Do you know the favorites are there at this point?
I literally have a page on that.
Please.
Let me see if I can find it.
What is the name of your memoir, Eric? Do you have a name yet?
It's not. That's the secret thing we're going to reveal. That's going to be a reveal when I do pre-orders, probably in the fall.
Oh, I can't wait.
It's work in progress for now, though.
Love it.
Let me see. We were put differently. So we were sequestered 10 fans, and Mikey B, one of the fans, Like he had done all kinds of like online research, and at the time, 2008, 2007, like there really wasn't anything out there to like research. It was just Survivor sucks, whatever they were saying on that website. We're sequestered. There's only 10 of us. That's not enough to play the game. We really have no idea what's going on, or at least I don't. So I assume there's another tribe somewhere. We get into our boats to finally like go to like the beach to meet Jeff, and they say, okay, you can talk now. And Mikey B immediately is like, this is the fans versus favorites. I know it. There's only 10 of us. There's got to be 10 more. This lines up when the last fans for like the last season that was an all-star season was around. Mikey B called it. Like, and he's like rattling off people. He's like, Yao Man's probably going to be there. They're probably going to have the James guy who was on the recent season, China, which we only saw like 3 episodes of. Mm-hmm. He's like just rattling off names. Like, these people are going to be there. And I'm like, real? Are you serious? Like, he's blowing my mind. And we get to the beach and they're all there.
Wow. Where did he know that? That was just his inclination.
So one of two things happened. He either did a ton of online research and like talked to whoever it was, or he leaked from production. Like he like schmoozed with somebody on production and got to know, like he kept asking leading questions, or like those Jedi mind trick questions where you can be like, oh, it's going to be a nice, like, I hope the weather's great in Palau. And then they're like, yeah, Palau's going to be really great when we get there. And then you're like, you just revealed that we're going to Palau.
Oh, so you didn't even know that?
I didn't know that till I got my ticket.
Wow. I wonder if I don't know enough of if that's how they used to do it. Because it's so like, obviously we all go to Fiji now, but I wonder if I don't know that detail, as if that you were presented the place once you got the ticket in LA.
Yeah, we had no idea. They don't tell you. They didn't tell us. And then when we went for Caramoan, they didn't tell us either. And I had read rumors about the Philippines. And so I said to the casting guys, I'm like walking down the hall, I'm like, I really hope customs isn't a pain in the butt when we get to the Philippines. He's like, no, it should be fine. And I'm like, you just revealed we're going to the Philippines. And he was so mad at me. And I was like, it's just a stupid little mind trick.
You're a Survivor player. You gotta use the strategy when you can use the strategy. That is so funny. So your reaction then, so you watch Ozzy. Ozzy's the guy. Ozzy's the challenge guy. Ozzy walks out. What's the feeling of like, now you got to play? If my memory serves me, I think you have a confessional about this, but what's it like to now you're playing with Ozzy? Your direct competition is this guy who's the guy.
I have to beat him. That's the direct competition. I had seen Ozzy on Cook Island season previously, and I thought the hype over his challenge prowess was greatly exaggerated. Facing someone like Ozzy was something I wanted as a competitor. This was something I had trained to do. And then Jeff basically says, go. And I beat him. I beat him across the island.
You get that little thing, or you don't get the little thing. You're close to the little thing off the thing. This is so neat.
That's the next page. The next page basically, we all got confused. Nobody knew what to do once we crossed the beach. Even Ozzy didn't know what to do. And I think Yao Man and Kathy ended up with the idol when we crossed the island. But no, I wanted to beat him. I wanted to be like, he's the model. He's the challenge beast. Target him and beat him at his own game. And I thought he would be resting on his laurels because he did so well and he got second and he won the car on his season. And I was like, he's probably full of himself. He probably thinks he's going to be walking in here and I'm a nobody. He has no idea who I am. I'm going to beat this guy and I'm going to show everybody, I'm going to out Ozzy. And then by the end of the season, I realized you don't need to out Ozzy. That's not what this is about. This is not a competition track meet. This is a social political game.
And that's foresight that you built in 35 days, that I don't think Ozzy might not have ever have landed there. Like, I think that's an interesting, even now, what is Ozzy like? I knew just from off the show, you do the way that the new era is operating. We're all, hanging out at parties and stuff. What's Ozzy like just in normal life?
He's chill. He's a chill guy from Venice Beach. He's like that's where when I went, it's actually stayed with him for like 2 days after Survivor Micronesia ended. And I stayed at his house because I had nowhere to stay because Alexis was there and I think Amanda was there. And he was hanging out with Amanda because she was in town. He's like, just stay at my place. So I stayed at his place in Venice Beach and we're just chilling. It was like the least competitive environment ever. It was basically walk down the street and get a coffee and go to the beach. And if you want, you can go surfing.
If you
She's
want.
really chill.
That's almost too pressure. It's like, hey, listen, we're hanging out. Did you expect Amanda on this situation on season 50? Were you expecting to see Amanda again?
I was hoping. I feel like Amanda can't get away from her like Survivor past of like underperforming or people thinking that she's less good than she is because she plays with such alongside other great players. I would have liked to see Amanda, what would this be, version 4 of Amanda?
This is 4. This is
Yeah.
yeah, this is the Returns and Heroes vs. Villains. That was somebody who it wasn't until a week before the cast was leaked and then announced that I thought was 1,000% in.
Yeah.
There wasn't ever a question that she wasn't. And I
Yeah.
guess we'll never really know. I know Sharon Tharp, who's an entertainment reporter, who's lovely. Hi, Sharon Tharp, if you're listening. She
Okay.
posted that in an interview that is coming soon, it is revealed that she had scheduling conflicts, that she maybe was
Oh,
interested in going. But it's season 50. What's the scheduling conflict?
you
Just
know.
come hang out.
I know.
Very interesting. Now you go play again. You're back in it 5 years later, I guess, roundabout. 10 seasons later. Is there anything that you take from Ozzy, or maybe it's what Ozzy doesn't have that you're now taking with you on your second time?
Oh, you're talking about Karamoan?
Caramoan, when you
Yeah.
return.
It basically was lower my threat level. Just lower your threat level no matter what. You can be a competitive beast, but you don't want to brag like, you know, unless you're Tom Westman and you can like win every single challenge in a row to the end, like 5 out or 6 out. Um, just lower your threat level. And Karamoan, that's something that I did. I basically was like, I'm a number, keep me in the conversation. And then just if I can get within that window of like the last 3, 5, 6, somewhere in there, start trying to win challenges because you've hung out as like a non-threat for so long. Um, I don't think that's a good strategy though, still, because there's some weird challenge that you're not like an expert at. Like someone might be better at bag throwing or someone's better at balancing on a beam. And then it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that you're good at, obstacle courses or whatever.
Yeah, and even in the most recent seasons, I think that, this came up in season 47 about challenge wins. Is like what makes,
Yeah.
I think Andy asked the question of what makes Rachel's win with challenge differences or challenge wins different from a Ben
Right.
or a Mike Holloway who just kind of wins their way to the end. And that's not really the way that the game has been played for quite a while. The challenge wins mean less than they maybe ever have in this current iteration of the show. The fans versus favorites is an interesting concept as like you're I think by far and away the biggest fan the first time on your tribe of 10. Is that
Yeah.
fair to say? By
Yeah.
like a lot.
Yeah.
And even the second time, there's no, we right before we recorded, we mentioned, Ali Povivets, who is second out. There weren't fans really the second time, like huge fans.
I'm trying to think. They weren't to the same level, no.
And now, you have the new era where everybody's a fan. Everybody's
Yeah.
the super fan. Everybody
Yeah.
would, I wonder how a fans versus favorites looks like now with like you are maybe one of now 20 total in the two fans tribes who's like a super fan on the caliber of the
Yeah.
fans of today. How does that work now? I wonder with 10 actual fans of the show, people who like, there are people on your beach, when the folks are running out, they don't recognize them. They were like, who,
Right.
you could tell the faces of confusion. I mean, I remember when Amanda walked out, I think Mario Lanza has a funny 115 article where like she gets kind of like a polite golf clap because there's some people like, who is that?
Who is she? Yeah. Yeah.
But it's such an interesting thing of like, I wonder, I don't think they'll ever bring back that format. But I
Yeah.
wonder how it plays differently with actual fans of the show.
Yeah. It's hard to extrapolate. It's hard to understand what the end product is, like who they put on the show versus like what they are, like how did they get into that area, I guess. Um, there's like this marketing effect that happens where it's like these are fans of the show and they might not be fans, they're just framed as fans. And I think that's one reason that I think they went away from the subtitles like Heroes, Hustlers, and all that, David's versus Goliath, like those types of things. I think they got away from those because there was some flack about that with respect to like what somebody is or labeled as or not.
Yeah.
Um,
Nobody's ever been labeled a healer, and they're like, like a healer is a very arbitrary, but now you
right.
have these new era seasons, which I obviously have, top of mind and I can graph out just because I
Yeah.
love this stuff. But for the casual fan, nobody knows the difference between 43, 45, and 47,
Right. Right.
I would even just like them to throw in like Ghost Island is a huge concept, but even if you just had a name that was just
Right.
like,
Right.
generational war, and it's like it doesn't mean anything, but it's like I just any kind of like designated thing that changes the seasons, just because
Yeah.
I very much hear the critique of they all kind of blend together.
Yeah.
Both of your seasons, everybody, you got two names on both seasons.
Right.
You know,
It's
pretty
I'm
nice.
old. I'm old school now. Like I didn't think I would ever be old school. I'm an old school player now.
What are your old school observations of how the new era is operating week to week
I'm super intimidated by new school. If I
as
played
players in the game?
if I played again, I would be at the whim of new schoolers for sure. I would basically be like, there's so much mental effort in there. Like everybody's like a Cochrane and then some. It's amazing. It's insane. It's like I just kind of I'm very old school in that respect of like, let's keep this really simple. Let's scramble before tribal, a little. That's fine. But there's like Cochrane, as an example, would like game all day and all night. And he'd pull in new people to game with, like to talk with. Like he'd pull in Andrea or he'd pull in whoever. It's just far and away something that's not like it's so intimidating. And then if you have a tribe of people doing that, every single computer is running its own different software on high like high proficiency gameplay. That's where you're going to get things like these, voting blocks forming or like the whispering at tribal council and that type of stuff. I would be a bit of a dinosaur, I think, if I played again. I wrote down a couple times that if people were doing the whole live tribal, like whispering around me, I would bring a water bottle and I would just start dumping it on people because it's like, that is not acceptable
Yeah.
behavior at tribal council. Like I would just be like, and I would tell people, I'd be like, if you guys start whispering at tribal, I will literally dump water on you. I don't care if you're in my alliance. Like, let's keep this simple. Like, we don't
Yeah.
need to have this level of like anxiety. It's like the anxiety emotion from Inside Out 2, who's like on a switchboard going like this.
Yeah.
And I'm the dinosaur, joy in the background just watching.
That is such an interesting observation that made me think of like, there's going to be people who are on this season who have played 39 days. Ozzy's played 100 days. So is Sari. And this expedited format, everybody, the older era folks, they talk shit on like the decrease in day change. But the
Yep.
competition might be harder than the actual elements are. Like, I'm wondering
Yeah.
when they come back. I talked to Ethan Zahn about Jenna Lewis, and I had said that there's going to be somebody who's played 39 days who comes back and says the 26 days is harder. And Eliza's going to have a heart attack, and all these people who are like so steadfast on the 39
Those
days
guys.
is harder. And it may not be the elements. It may be just because it is you're going, going, going. Whereas you're describing is like you had days where you're just hanging out at the beach. You're just laying,
Yeah.
you do nothing.
Yeah.
It's so foreign
exactly.
to now. Granted, I didn't make it far enough to experience. I actually day 2 and day 4 out of the 5 days were days of nothing. But you're having a day of nothing every cycle. You're having 18 days of nothing at that point, which is a
Right.
lot of the new era merge. It's every day. It's your boom. It's like the last day of school, the last week of school when they're all half days. That's what you're going at that schedule. Where you're
Yeah.
you're having days where it's just for tanning.
If the old school is smart, they're going to band together. That was, Survivor 40. That's what happened. The old school got decimated, for that reason. If they're smart, they'll stick together. I don't know if I'm really curious to see how the alliances break out and how much context is needed to understand pre-gaming, like who has relationships outside the game. Like I know, like 40, that was I think the first season that really addressed outside the game alliances in a way, like the pre-gaming concept in a way that was like into the show that actually affected it. It's going to affect it even more here. Like they're going to have, besides showing like past seasons where Coach and Ozzy were beefing or Sari and Ozzy were beefing, you're going to have to show that like maybe those events, like maybe Ozzy's going to bring up like, yeah, I hung out with D and whoever at this event and we made a final 3 pact, a month ahead of this.
What's so funny is you play Blood on the Clock Tower. I know you've played with the Survivor folks, and that they're here. Like Emily and Christian, who are playing Blood on the Clock Tower weekly, are playing Survivor 50 together.
Yeah.
There are people who tag in. It's just like on 40 they show that footage of the Poker Alliance, which I think was like it felt like archival footage for the first time in Survivor history. They just show a random clip. There's lore with the folks that play online, especially now. And I'm curious to hear this from you because I think of like the early Survivor, everybody's hanging out all the time, everybody's touring around. And I think of new era Survivor as that again, where I feel like, and
Yeah.
correct me if I'm wrong, it feels like that's missing a little bit in the time that you played. Did you find that to be your experience where you're like surrounded by Survivor people all the time for a couple years?
Yes, it was, you're on the show, it's fantastic. You have this new group of like social group. You're flying to events to hang out with them, and events are inviting you. And so you're going, and that's where you're like seeing these people. What is it? 2025 right now? Maybe 6 years ago, I stopped regularly going to those events because it just became new people. And a lot of the old people that I connected with stopped going. And so I'm in that old grandpa mode of like, it's the social scene's faded away. I don't need to be in those circles anymore. It was
But
there. It's there though. It's so fresh when you're on.
people compare it to high school, but it is
Yeah.
literally like high school. Like even the year
Yeah.
out, you go home for Thanksgiving, you're at the bar on Wednesday night with all your high school. But then at a certain point, granted, you wait 3 years, and you're like, who are these people? Like I've never,
Yeah.
once you're kind of graduating class, the freshmen when you're a senior, once they are now seniors, you're like, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So that's a
Yeah.
very funny observation. How was that time for you going around and doing all those events? Was that a fun time?
It was awesome. It was just awesome. It was just like entertaining, and as a fan, you're like seeing in real life. I got to meet Coach like fresh off of Coach's Tocantins season, and I'm like, this guy's such a character. Like this is crazy. Like you pulled this guy out of the TV and you hang out with him. It was awesome. There's no question. Like if I was on again, I probably would go to a few of those events to do that again because it's really invigorating. It's really cool.
Have you found anything about Survivor to help you as you've just now I'm recently become a father? You've been a father for a minute?
4 years. He just turned
4
4.
years.
Yeah.
Is there any skills that translate from being like on the show or off that you've just learned in this world that translate to being a dad?
The sleep deprivation is rough.
Sure.
Um, so so we don't really have supports. I have family, but they're kind of all over the place. And they're not like we don't have grandparents that are like watching the kid every single day or every weekend. We don't have a ton of supports. Um, I would say raising a kid is tougher physically than Survivor. And that's generally, it's not because of the food. The food is very tough on Survivor. That no contest. Sleep deprivation is nuts when you have a kid, especially a young kid. I slept more on Survivor than I did when he was 1. And that the other thing is the length of time. Years. You're doing this for potentially years if you have no supports.
Yeah.
So by year 1, I was like, this is going to kill me. And I started to have gray hairs, and now I have gray hairs. It's very stressful. It's very tough. It's very rewarding. Obviously, your child is amazing, but it's very tough. And I have a utmost respect for anybody who's on Survivor as like a parent because they've gone through something so much tougher than I think I ever did in like my 20s running track or something silly.
Wow. Interesting. It's such a weird, it's you never hear about it, but it's harder. It's harder now than it was to be on the rough it on the island for those 2 times.
No, there's no question. Starving was the hardest thing for me. That was the hardest thing for me out there,
And
and
you're
that's something
thin too. You're so, you were thin or you're thin now, but
yeah,
you've been
I fluctuate between like 150 and 155 at 6 foot. And I lost 15 pounds both seasons, like give or take. But it was nuts. Like I was like, that was easily the worst part of Survivor for me was the hunger. Um, the sleep deprivation was not as bad. You didn't sleep as much because you're uncomfortable, or some nights you didn't sleep at all because it was raining on you. But it's sleep deprivation long term with raising a kid that's tough. It's like 3 months. With like 3 hours of sleep a night or something.
and there's no $1,000,000 at the end. In fact, you lose money the longer,
Cost money,
there's
yeah.
which is that's very funny. Tell me about like when you think about Ozzy
In a
in
horrible way.
2025. Yeah, it's a transition. That's very funny though. It's
Yeah.
interesting. You never get to hear the perspective of somebody who's had such a experience. When you think about Ozzy going to season 50 and you think about like his ideal alliance partner, what kind of qualities, or actually, not even his ideal alliance partner. If you had to pick an alliance partner for him, who do you pick for him, knowing him, having played with him? Who's our guy? Let me throw our
Yeah, yeah.
graph.
That was the bring him up finger. That was the bring up the cast finger. Joe. I mean, Joe has. I'm curious to see Joe play again alongside Ozzy. There's some like-minded people here with this like old school thread of like, uh, caveman kills food, brings it home to family. Like Joe is in that like caveman mentality group. Let's see here.
It's so funny. So
Colby.
I just talked to Tina Wesson about Colby, and I
Yeah,
asked Tina the same question, and Tina's like, "Oh, Colby's gonna love Joe."
yeah,
Joe is for the
yeah.
people who think that Joe is getting voted off early in this situation. Joe's touching eighth and above at least, I think. With the people, the new era people. I mean, I'm sorry, the older era people. Joe is their guy.
Yeah. And Jonathan, I just saw Jonathan. Colby,
You
Ozzy,
just saw Jonathan
Jonathan.
recently in person, or just on this graphic?
Sorry, on the graphic. Sorry. I just saw him, Jonathan there. That's Ozzy, Kobe, Jonathan, Joe. Similar like mindset of like strength is strength. And then you have a lot of disruptors. You have Camilla who hits people with buses, Genevieve. Um, I'm so excited to see Tiffany play again. I'm very interested to see how she's going to play. And just to like make her more interesting, they threw in a Q on the side.
Yeah.
Um,
She's a top winner pick potential for, I know Rob, right before Rob left, Rob had said
yeah,
that on a podcast, that Tiffany is the only person who's coming into here with like, I shouldn't say only, but like a lot less of a reputation than everybody
okay,
else who's here, which
okay,
will help her. And who knows, this group, who knows the meta of the returning Survivor seasons, but like Amber
right,
Burkich wins All Stars, and Parvati wins your show, and
right.
you have Sarah Lacina who wins Game Changers. So like the recipe works for a Tiffany who like plays really great her first time. Room for improvement certainly to come in and beast mode this.
Yeah. I know. I just realized there's those two in the bottom corner that are kind of unknowns. I've heard spoilers on them. Um, honestly, no matter who they are, I don't think, unless it's like the next Sandra or the next Tony, like I just don't. This group is super strong in a lot of ways. Like I know I'm bashing it because it's Jeff's favorites or they missed all the 20s. I honestly, there's already so much going on with this season. I don't know how any of these two will be any relevance other than they might have the benefit of none of these players have seen them play. That might be the only benefit they have because Malcolm had that on Karamoan. We didn't know how he did and we didn't see how he played. And then we eventually figured it out though. Like halfway through, we're like, wow, this guy's pretty smart and pretty athletic, and we need to kick him off.
Well, you and Andrea have both had the same experience where you've played multiple times with like a
Yeah.
non-entity. Granted, you got to Andrea twice with Malcolm, and then Zeke and Michaela didn't get to see them at all. At least you had seen Amanda or James. Was there any thought to you that they won? Did you ever have that thought when you were there?
I thought Amanda did really well because nothing else made sense. James,
Sure.
I think James, I'm trying to remember, he didn't pull his big mistake before I left. He was like still
Mm.
on the show. But we just assumed that he was like a fan favorite.
And then was it ever apparent to you during the game? Is that something you learn while you're playing, like where they ended up, or roughly where they ended up? I know Amanda went to both seasons thinking that she won.
Yeah. The what was it? So Malcolm specifically, we were told, oh crap, what were we told? Jeff said he made it to the final four. That's what he said.
Really?
And that was, I believe, stated to everybody. Amanda, we were told she made it to finals, I believe. I think they did tell us that information. And there was some weird caveat because then we started to pick at it because Malcolm could tell us what he wanted to. We were given the baseline of information, like he made it to fourth. And then he had to tell us like, how did you get there? What was your season like? And then we had to basically, it was like an Exile Island situation where we're like, what is true? What is not true? What is like? We only have to go off his word.
That is so interesting. I'm wondering now with these two non-entities, is that something that I wonder if this group gets the heads up on how they did?
I would imagine some statement it will be said about placement. I believe we got that. I need to double check on that. Maybe I'll ask. Let me ask. Who can I ask? I can ask Cochran. Let me message Cochran and see if he'll respond to me.
It really is an interesting thing of like, you play with Malcolm, who then goes to ninth place. I did some number crunching before they left for Survivor 50. Once I heard a possibility of the Survivor 49 duo, and
Yeah.
those folks who return, not having been seen, place ninth and above every time. They're always going deep, which is, it's good information to have it, but like that is a spot that's one of 9 spots that could be yours. It feels like
Yeah.
it is easy, and it's never happened to where one of those people on a back-to-back season goes out early. Like Malcolm, I'm assuming. I mean, granted, you go to tribal council the first round and then not again as that tribe. But Malcolm
Right.
was never going to be in any danger on that tribe.
No. No.
No.
He just fit right in.
Right. Which is interesting is we're not, I wonder that for these folks if it could be a quick tenure. Because also, like, not to say that the Game Changers group isn't as hungry as season 50 or Caramoan isn't as hungry, but like
Yeah.
it feels hard for me to see Jenna Lewis or a Colby or a Suri risk them leaving over somebody they don't even have a name of until and a couple hours before they start.
Right.
That seems hard to
Right.
me.
Right.
And there's
That's
also a possibility that one of these people could be like an Ozzy type. We don't necessarily know that.
right.
Somebody that gets along with him particularly well, but
Right.
we'll see.
It's definitely an unknown. Yeah.
It's an unknown. So I'm sorry. In terms of picking an ally for Ozzy, tell me somebody who you think Ozzy will not gel with if they're on the same tribe. Who's Ozzy's like
Uh,
kryptonite of this group?
it's gonna be new school, and it's gonna be like somebody who's deemed as like a liar or a sneak. Or
Yeah.
he might even some of these chaos people, like Q, just generating chaos. He might not want to deal with that. But I think like he might not gel with Chrissy. He might not gel with Genevieve, Camilla. There's this
That's
unknown.
interesting.
There's this unknown with Ozzy that, like you said, he's going to events. He is making connections. So you could see him, connect with somebody that you intuitively, I'd be like, no, they would never team up. Like he might team up with like D, or he might team up with like who else from this list? Maybe like, well, Kyle, maybe even. I
I
really
could see
don't
that.
know. So there might, if he's evolved any and he's made some connections, he could surprise me. I'm expecting old Ozzy, and I'm expecting the same exact gameplay from him.
And what did you, if you had to assign a placement to Ozzy, is first couple members of the jury something you're considering, or is
I'm
you think
notoriously
earlier than that?
I'm really bad at picks. I'm honestly
Sure,
I'm terrible at picks.
sure,
I'm
sure.
gonna say though, he's either gonna go out with all the old schools at the same time, like one after another, or he's going to be part of something bigger than him. Like maybe he's teaming up with like a hybrid old school, new school team. And in that case, he'll make it past the merge. And then right after the merge, he's going to be in trouble. He needs to watch his back.
Yeah, that's the dangerous. I mean, even in the new era, like you're like a hunter type who's like
Yeah.
really good at the challenges in the pre-merge. Like, the first, second, third member of the jury, like it feels, and
Yeah.
that's what Ozzy did in Game Changers, is right around that
Right.
same spot. Is there anybody here, Eric, that you have talked with and interfaced with in the past? Like any of the, I'm very curious about the new era folks, as like you were maybe, more presently with the folks from the older era. But are there anybody here that you've had any kind of relationship with?
Yeah. So yeah, like old school, Suri, Ozzy Coach. I've met all of them, hung out with them. Rick Devens, I talked to at the Florida event a few times, and he actually he's a voiceover he plays himself in a YouTube video I made called High School Vampire Chronicles, which makes fun of the Twilight series.
Love it.
He plays a news
Who does
reporter.
he? I was going to say that makes sense. That was my
Yeah.
first question.
Nothing else with anybody here, honestly. And I draw comics, and so I'll talk to people through chat. Like I'll draw a comic of them, and they'll say, "Wow, that's hilarious! You drew this perfectly." And then just Christian, because I played Blood on the Clock Tower that one time.
Oh, you only played the one time. I didn't know if you were in the rotating crew.
I played
They
once.
love Blood on the Clock Tower.
I love that. That game was very fun, and I got kind of grumpy during it because I was like, "Guys, stop." I love that game. I had to quit playing because my child woke up. He heard me like yelling at the computer and woke up.
When you say guys stop, like what was the situation that you were in? Because like people will dig this if it's like people in the world, you know.
Yeah, they were so there's the main lobby where everybody's, what doing whatever, and then they go into their little private chats. Everybody go into private chats, and I'm left in the lobby, and I'm just like, "Hey, what's up?" And I'm talking to whoever, and I'm like a full transparency guy. I'm like, my belief is aggressive transparency, and so when people come back in, they start chatting, and they're like a little bit. It's like surface level. It's like, "How's the weather? Did you see that new video about whatever?" And then I was like, "What are you guys talking about in the rooms?" Are you like? And someone said something like, "We're talking about who we're going to vote out." And like, "Are you going to vote out me? Are you going to target me?" And that was a little too direct. And I said, "I don't." I said, "I don't care if you're going to kill me. Just tell me if you're going to kill me." Like, and it got like I didn't want to go into these private chats. I was more about like just all talk in the lobby, which is kind of like the same idea as like pouring water all over everybody when they start whispering.
Yeah.
I think aggressive transparency is the way to go. But people don't like that. I think a lot of survivor groups like to do sideline chats. And this also screwed me over in Sequestered. I played Sequestered a long time ago. And I was actually kind of mad at the format of that too, because in Sequestered, it's all about those private chats and how quickly you
Yes.
can make deals and stuff. And I got really grumpy about that one too.
Huh.
I'm a dinosaur. I think I'm a dinosaur. I think if I played again, people would be like, "That's like an 80-year-old in like a 40-year-old's body."
But you know what, people, if you Eric Reichenbach never play 16 and 26, and you are randomly on season 48, like that is a welcomed change
Yeah.
from the new era that like there's a guy Kyle from season 47 who kind of I felt fit
Yeah.
that similarly, who would strategize when he had to, but really he's there not to say he's there to not strategize, but he is not with the same, which is interesting
Yeah.
as you are a super fan who has that, because most of the super fans are, 100 miles an hour wanting
Yes.
to, game. Which that, you said that about Cochran. That surprises me about Cochran. And it's been a minute since I've watched Caramoan, obviously all the way through, but
Yeah.
he to me, like from what I recollect from the edit there, is just feels very like mob bossy, where he's not scrambling as much. He was scrambling in behind the scenes.
He was, and his confessionals were very different than he was, person to person. Person to person, he was very like demure and calm and clear and more chill. And then he'd go into a confessional and he'd just light it up. And I think production was also kind of like, no, get into there. Like, tell us really what you feel, Cochran, really dive into it. He was not a mob boss to work with. He was just kind of a gentle, nerdy dude.
Yeah, and that seems to trend like towards the new era also. Like I think of a Charlie who I think is very
Yeah.
similar to that archetype.
Yeah.
And I'm interested now, you have folks that have played with a Cochran type back in the day who like remember, oh, that was the Cochran guy who's like, doing all of this. For the audio listeners, I kind of puppeteered. And I puppeteered. And they're more wary of him. Do you have, and I know you're bad at picks, Eric, do you have a winner pick for Survivor 50?
I'd love to see Tiffany win. That'd be amazing. And just to see Q explode would be amazing. I would like to be validated in my thought that like a second and a third time returnee is like that's the successful place here. And I want that to be the thing that happens, so that maybe Jeff in production is like, yeah, let's not bring back people a fifth time when we have all these quality people waiting in line to play a second time or a third time.
Yeah, I think that this is now a beta test to whether the next All-Star season is you have like a new era second chance, or a second chance over 50 seasons.
Yes.
Or we get legends, or we get another like arbitrary theme that we get just, and I think this is it for Serene. I think this is it for Ozzy. But like, I think we get more of that type a second time should they do well. But if they show up and it just doesn't go their way, then I think that part of the experiment had failed.
Yeah.
I want to ask more about the memoir. You obviously, you have a famous Survivor moment. How is that writing that? Like, how is writing that reflected in the memoir for you?
It's pivotal. It's definitely pivotal, because people don't understand it. They just don't get it. The person who was closest to like putting it out there was Dalton Ross when he did his oral history of Survivor, and he went through that moment, which he really loves as a moment. I myself have been processing it for years. Am I stupid? am I a dumbass? Like, was I played? There's so much involved there with it. And also as somebody who's a fan of the show, like how can you know and love this show and do something so like monumentally stupid? So I've tried to like that's part of the therapy part, but part of this too is just like if I dig into it and understand it, I can then teach other people about it and like why it's unique. Because there's way more to it than just you were a dumbass and you gave away immunity.
Now you have 12 years. If you said you wrote this has been a process writing this for 3 years. You have 12 years thinking about it and then 3 years working on this. Has there been more like headway into thinking about it in a different way in those 3 years?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Huh.
And it's
And
tough.
tell me about
It's
where we're trending in which direction now.
um we're trending in the direction of uh postmodernism, I guess. I don't know. Like
Okay, hell yeah.
the idea that life is absurd and the rules are like placeholders. There's kind of this idea of like you have this really rudimentary understanding of competition, you know, winners and losers, and then it kind of opens up into like, but also you have to be a good person, and also you know you can have wins, stuff that are considered wins that aren't like winning the game or staying on Survivor the longest, or you know what you do with your fame after Survivor, because some people feel guilt about like not doing more stuff after Survivor.
Certainly.
And it kind of put the whole thing on its head of like what does it mean to be a winner, like what does it mean to have success. I think a lot of success is like an iceberg where there's a lot going on under the surface, but people only see the top. They only see, you know, Sandra won 2 times, or Tony, you know, Tony won however many times, or this person won against all odds. I don't think it's that straightforward.
Yeah, and it you know, it's a tough thing to have such a like tangible yeah,
Yeah,
as like Sandra has 2 tangible wins. Like
yeah,
Tony has 2 tangible wins. And your thing is very it is a tangible handing off of something, which is it sticks with, again,
yeah,
it's not the same thing, but Eric, I have a tangible thing that happened to me. A tangible crawling up of something that is like I
yeah,
think it sticks because it is so, people don't remember, and again, not to speak on your situation, but I've never understood the big swing equaling dumb move. Like a big
yeah,
swing that doesn't work isn't a dumb move if it's a big swing. I think of like a Woo who has a choice whether to take
yeah,
Tony or to take Cass to the end. He will win against Cass. He knows he will win against Cass, and he takes Tony over an honor thing. If the goal of Survivor is to win Survivor and to not lose Survivor, that is losing Survivor in an instance. Whereas you didn't do that. Like I don't think that you did that. I don't think JT did that with writing the letter. I think that's a swing. And Tyson says it in the Heroes versus Villains finale about when he switches his vote and then gets voted out in that tribal council. Like
yeah,
if it would have worked, it would have been really cool. And that is always how I felt
right.
about that particular moment. Whereas when you make a move that 100% ensures that you will lose the game, that is a worse move to me.
I mean, that's the argument that everybody makes. Giving away immunity, that was the losing move, you know? That's the argument made to me. Not I'm playing devil's advocate here because it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I've been on both sides of this argument.
certainly. Yeah,
Yeah.
it just seems. Yeah, I've always said that. Like, I'd rather watch a swing. You know what I mean? I'd always
Right.
rather like. There's intent with a swing. There's passion with a swing. And not to say there's passion in integrity in taking the person who will maybe win the game to the end, but I just think that like in a game that is binary and the goal is to win, when you lose, I feel like when you do something to make you lose, I don't know. And it seems like that's what it was because they play the clip all the time. You know what I mean? They
Right,
play the clip.
right.
Um, I feel very impassioned about this, Eric. This is something that I think about, quite often.
It's 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 been what, like 15 years, and I still get messages of like, "No," or like, "Oh my god, you did that." So it's like I'm immortal now. Like this will be on my tombstone. Like this is a moment that like transcended winning or losing a game. It's like I lost so big in a way that it broke it, and people remember that.
Was Micronesia a season that ended up on Netflix?
It was.
Did you feel a Netflix wave when Netflix
Yes.
happened?
Yes.
Yeah, that is
Yeah.
so interesting to me.
Yeah. And
It's a whole new cast.
I remember it was like all of a sudden I started to get messages. And I'm like, what the hell is happening? And then I looked on Netflix, we're just watching on Netflix, and there's me on the last gasp challenge with the grate. And I'm like,
Yeah.
they put me on the profile picture. I'm like, what in the hell? And that's what happened. Some younger kids are like, you got so played by those women. And I'm like, you are like 10 years late.
Yeah.
Like,
We've had 3 presidents since that's
yeah,
happened. You know, we've
like
had a
you
couple
didn't
people.
exist when this happened.
That is so funny. Wow. Listen, I geek out over stuff like this. This is so much fun for me. Thank you so much for talking about Ozzy. If you had parting words for Ozzy, if you got a text to him before he left, what would the text have been? Right before he gets on the plane. You're the last text he sends.
Good Lord. Oh God, what advice? He's going out on the boat. He's leaving. He's going to play a 5th time.
Mhm.
Oh
His
my
phone's on
God.
15%. It's gonna die after he
I
reads
would
that.
say don't trust new school. That's probably what I would say. And that's judging from not Heroes versus Villains. Sorry. That's judging from 40. I would just
Yes.
say
Yeah.
don't trust new school. And then he's gonna trust someone on new school. I just know it.
You certainly will.
He will.
I do think I really see and I don't. I say stuff like this, and it is not because I know anything. I do see a him and D situation. I think
Yeah.
him and D will go with each other. I think D really, just like Joe gives old era Survivor player, I think D does as well.
Okay.
And I think the
Okay.
same people are going to gravitate to each one. I think there's a case to be made that most of the new era folks give old school. They're like Jonathan. Jonathan is a guy that was on Survivor Fiji. You know, he's
Yeah.
just like, he
Yeah.
is that kind of guy. But I'm curious to see how it works out. But until then, tell everybody, Erik, where they can look for your stuff, where they can buy the memoir when the memoir is out, all the fun
Yeah.
stuff.
So all my art and everything is at Dabu Doodles. I'll put it in the chat. DAB. Oh, there it goes. DABUDOODLES.com. And I have a subscribe list to updates about the memoir. It's not spam. I'm not going to be like, today I did this. It's literally like I have a list, and when pre-orders are available, you'll get an email. And when it's published, you'll get an email. And those are like the 2 emails I'm going to send.
Love it. Listen, I can't wait to read it. This is something that if I was never on Survivor, I would be buying this. This is very interesting to me. So
I know we're at time.
No,
Why aren't there more Survivor books? Like, there's like adjacent Survivor books, and I
Yeah.
know some of it has to do with the contracts and stuff. But there's like a cookbook from Keith Famey. Boston Rob has a book about lessons, and
He
Boston
does.
Rob has a cookbook. And I think
Yeah.
Parvati's making a memoir, and Stephen Fishbach is just making like a fictional book. Like I'm
That is
just
correct.
like Bachelor World, the ABC's Bachelor. There's tons of books. There's tons of
They
memoirs
all write
and crap.
books. Yeah.
I don't.
You go to you go to a discount bookstore, those Bachelor books are all over the table. You see 100 copies of Colton Underwood, new castmate of Rob Cesternino on the Traders. I
Oh,
see his book all over the place. But yeah, it's interesting. It is a gap in the market. I think it's just we're
yeah.
waiting for, Parvati's book, Nice Girls Don't Win, comes out July 8th. I do know that.
Yep. Yep.
Steven's book, you can pre-order now, Escape. It comes out January of 2026. So I'm excited to see those. But yeah, it's a weird gap. I'm waiting for like the oral history of somebody who's lived it, which yours is that thing.
Yeah.
And I just, everybody, it's so interesting. I mean, we all have, I say we all, but like everybody has a different perspective on this situation. And it's a 720 unique people that have this unique, one of the biggest thing that's ever happened in their life.
Right.
It's crazy.
Right.
There aren't a lot of things in the world that are like that. So I'm excited to see what comes of future books, but definitely checking out yours. I can't wait for the title. We don't have the title yet. Do you know the
What?
title?
I have the title. I just
You
can't. My
have the
publisher said,
title.
"Don't say anything yet."
Oh, I can't wait to hear it. Oh, well, listen, drop comments, guess the name of Erik's memoir in the comments. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining the Survivor 50 Files. We'll be back next time with a new episode.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.